Should college athletes be paid? Would you pay the people who make you money? If so, you will understand that many college athletes ask a question just like this all the time. That being, how come they don't get paid? I believe it is important for people to understand why college athletes should be paid, since they are what make the team and bring in money for their organizations. Throughout this, I'll try and explain some reasons as to why I believe they should be paid a salary. The 3 points I'll be explaining are because many athletes put themselves in harm's way, many don't have time to work a day job or are not allowed, and lastly that they can bring many supporters or fans to teams that might bring money. Now I will give you the facts behind these reasons. To begin, I'll tell you about how college athletes put themselves in harm's way many times when they step out to compete. Some sports like hockey and football can deliver huge hits to players that could end their athletic careers. Therefore, I believe it is morally right to pay them a given salary as a college athlete. E. Larson states in his article, The Long-Term Outcome of Knee and Ankle Injuries in Elite Football, that close to 57% of football players will experience some sort of knee injury throughout their career. Another man that goes by the name of B. Woodford Rogers also studied knee injuries in his article, Risk Factors for Anterior Cruciate Ligament Injury in High School and College Athletes. His studies show that the ACL is the most torn knee ligament, and the odds of re-injuring go up considerably afterwards. These facts do not lie and show the risk that these athletes take whenever they go out to try and represent their teams. These athletes go out and take the same risk that professional ones do daily, so why should they not be paid the same? This brings me to my next point, explaining how they are not able to get a job sometimes. I'll explain to you how many athletes cannot get a day job or even a side job in most cases like the other campus students. This is because much of the athlete's time is devoted to training towards their team's goals or staying in peak performance condition. Too many of these athletes' job is to be able to compete in their sport, and their employer or boss would be their head coach. Brennan Thomas writes in his Bleacher Report article, every day he has to wake up early for workouts and then go to class. After class, practice and study hall consume his evenings. In this, he is speaking in terms that after training in school, there is no time to work a job, to even cover many basic expenses that college gives you. He also states, a small monthly stipend, enough to cover basic expenses, will suffice in reducing the expenses of athletes. It is too much to expect athletes to play for education and the love of the game. Each year, the issue of athletes being paid more becomes more and more popular, so it is time to compensate them before more illegal money is taken. Given this is how athletes are supposed to be told to focus on their sport and education as their main priorities, whenever the expenses of school are haunting them at the back of their mind. Now I will present the final reason as to why I believe that college athletes should be paid. The final reason is that many teams need to recognize that many of these players bring in additional money for their school or team. The athletes are also the talent of the team, so it only seems fair that they receive some of the profit as well. Ashley Robinson wrote in her article for PrepScholarship.com that without the student athletes, the NCAA wouldn't earn over $1 billion in annual revenue, and college and university athletic programs wouldn't receive hundreds of thousands of dollars from the NCAA each year. In fact, without student athletes, the NCAA wouldn't exist at all. This is huge reasoning as to why they should be paid, in my opinion. Many of these athletes are the face of their team's program. If anyone deserves the payment, it should be the athletes. As I previously stated, the NCAA makes over $1 billion a year, and without the athletes, the program would be non-existent. Eli D. Pisciadio wrote on the website The Perspective, big companies are profiting off of branding college athletes, namely, asking them to wear brand apparel during games without paying them to do so. As such, these players feel used, and rightly so. These are companies that make income off of athletes, so it's completely fair that these players should get some of the income. If your personal image is used for someone else's income, it is only fair that you are compensated accordingly. Now that I have shown you my reasons, I will begin to conclude this speech. These athletes' chance of injury, the possibility of financial issues since they can't get a job in most situations, and the fact that they do not get paid for how much money they bring to certain programs. Throughout this, I have explained certain reasons supporting the ideas as to why I believe athletes should be paid, and it is important to know these facts of why athletes should be paid since it is their livelihoods we are talking about. If I was a college athlete playing a sport, I would find it reasonable to have some sort of income.